feel
the power.
That's Colin Crandall over there, the man of the hour, and myself, the producer of the show, Adam Roorda. Colin Crandall's always bringing us great interviews with everybody out there, and this show is brought to you by none other than Lith Token. Check them out, LITH token.io. A lot of great things with physical NFTs and cryptocurrency in general, and then also environmental social governance, so sustainability and ethics in business, guys. Some really great innovations being built over there, great developments. I'm actually the blockchain architect. We've got an amazing platform developer and data scientists and amazing business partners all across the board, including a lithium mining or lithium extraction company that is tied in there, and we're going to be getting some help from them and building out some infrastructure with the whole process with metrics and tracking on the supply chain. So it's stuff that everybody's been waiting for and talking about. We're actually doing it.
Absolutely, and they do it well. The societal, environmental governance they provide, the best I've ever seen. The NFTs are the niftiest I've ever seen.
Colin has no idea what he's talking about,
No, I don't.
but I can tell you we are building out some new amazing stuff.
Yes.
We are definitely being innovative over there.
That I agree with, and it's a great product. I believe in it. That part I do understand what I'm saying. I do believe in the Lith token and the technology behind it and the work hours I've seen him put in on this. So it's a serious product, and keep your eyes on it.
Oh man, when it comes to environmental social governance, it's actually a huge thing in the investment space, and also NFTs. We have all the thought leaders starting to get behind us. It's really great and amazing, considering that we started just 11 and a half months ago. We're at about 1 year anniversary since launch, and now we are about to launch a new platform, actually. So keep an eye out for the physical NFTs that will be coming out. Everybody's going to be hearing about it, and that marketplace is coming real soon. So
Absolutely.
Like I said, stay tuned over on lithtoken.io. It's LITH token.io.
Happy anniversary, Lith token.
Well, thank you. A couple weeks in advance, and actually, bringing up anniversaries, Colin, this is the last episode for this season. 25 episodes of the 10th season.
Love it.
That's close to how many episodes?
250 episodes. It sounds like
it's going to be closer to 300 because we went longer on a few seasons.
That's right. We've done 300 episodes, 5.25 years. Some of our earlier episodes were 3, 4, 5 hours.
One was 6.
Yep, we did go 6 hours once, and yeah, man, it's been an amazing ride, and we're going to keep it going. And a lot of you, if you want to watch some fun archives of the MMA Power Hour, we kind of randomly threw a few of them up on YouTube, so you'll see some old stuff that don't really have too many views. We were never really focused on that YouTube anyway, but they're still there going back almost 5 years, and you can find some on Facebook as well. But a lot of people that are still relevant in the fight world, some people that may not be, but were some top ranked or highly ranked fighting stars and had some interesting things to say. So if you ever don't have anything to do, or if you ever want to jump in and do some binge watching of MMA Power Hour, there's a ton of episodes at your fingertips online.
Yeah, absolutely. And we had a great run over there on Fight TV. You can still check out a majority of our episodes there as well. It's FITE.tv. But we have made a transition, thinking that we can carry our own over to the Hannibal TV, and obviously we're not carrying our own completely because we're collaborating with the Hannibal TV here. So those of you checking us out on any other platform, make sure to go on over to YouTube or Facebook. It's the Hannibal TV.
Yes.
Great North Wrestling, also you can put that in, and both of those, when you put it in the search bar, you'll find it. Otherwise, hit us up on our social media. Our website is currently down. We're probably going to keep it down for a while here, but hit up our social media. Let us know what you think. Share, comment, tweet, retweet. We love y'all and everybody that is on our social currently. Head on, make sure you're commenting, interacting, and if you want to ever ask a question of any of our guests that we have on, you can head on over to the Hannibal TV YouTube channel and drop a tip. If you do that, we will go ahead and make sure to ask the question, as long as it's not super offensive.
Absolutely, and we would appreciate that. You want to throw in $1, $3, $5, $20, whatever you want.
Whatever it is, 50 cents, we'll take it.
We'll take it, and we can ask your questions. And even if you don't have any questions, if you want to support, we would really appreciate it, because we work hard and we're on a shoestring budget making things happen. You know,
Tell you what, I'm going to
yeah.
throw it out there too. Anything that I get out of that, Colin, I'm going to go ahead and throw in a little bit at what all of it, whatever I receive from my share of the tips. I'm going to go ahead and throw straight into Lyft token.
Nice. That sounds good.
I'm going to do it.
That sounds a good idea. I know, and depending on what expenses I have that week, I may do that as well.
May double down, huh?
That's it. Might double down. We're going to keep that open because when you're with listtoken.io, you no longer have to worry about saying IO this, except for the server.
Well, we can't promise that. It depends on your personal financial situation, what you decide to do outside of Lyft token as well. So, can't control the markets 100%.
That is true. That is true. What is true in the beginning remains true. So anyway, we still have.
I'm not going to sit here and try to control the markets either, but you know what? I try to keep developments coming out and new business developments and partnerships and everything over there, so we keep things riding nice and smooth as much as possible.
Yeah, we do.
But speculators going to speculate.
Yes, they are. Speculators going to speculate. Haters going to hate. But we just have to keep on providing the great entertainment that we have to date.
Absolutely.
That's the rhyme. Call me the rhyming MMA analyst, MMA professor. Man, oh man. But anyway, we are looking at a pretty interesting card, this Saturday. And it is highlighted by Holly Holm. She does not quit, crowding, getting close to 40 years old. I think, 38 maybe something, but still, she is continuing to fight. She is very, very tough and experienced. She is a favorite over the very tough Brazilian known as the phenomenon, I would imagine that is, Ketlin Vieira. And this is going to be a rare fight where a Holmes opponent, I think, might be slightly taller than her. I think the last time she experienced that was against Jermaine Durandamy. But this is going to be a really good fight. Vieira coming off that good win over Misha Tate. And what's Holly coming off again? I don't think we've seen Holly for like 2 years, have we? 40. She is 40 now. 40 years old. And her last fight was a year and a half ago against Irene Aldana, which she did win that fight. A lot of people felt Aldana was going to be in there, was going to be throwing down, and it was going to be, piecing Holm up. But Holm is so tricky. I think people know that from boxing. Holm's chin is really good, and her boxing technique is good. She's more of a she does more cumulative damage than having really one punch knockout power. So people aren't worried about that, but her technique is good. Her defense is good. She's super conditioned. She is strong. She does have some ground game, and it looked like she just kind of befuddled Irene Aldana, although I believe Aldana mentioned she did have some injury going into that fight. But nevertheless, this is a very relevant fight. Both women are in the top 10 in the bantamweight division. Holly has been flirting with featherweight. Can you check and see? Does this say featherweight or bantam? It's got to be a bantam. They never say. It never says there. But
it does say.
Does it?
Bantamweight.
Beautiful. That's what I thought, because I don't think Vieira has any interest or thoughts of 45. So this is going to be a tough one. 40 years old. Holly's going to try to get her 8.5, 5'9" frame back down to 135 pounds, and that's a cut. But she's always been able to do it. The co-main event, very interesting and exciting. Santiago Ponzinibbio, the Argentinian, against Michel Pereira, the Brazilian. Man, that is going to be crazy. Pereira is so unorthodox with his spinning kicks and his rolls and jumping kicks and spinning back fists, spinning elbows. Puts you just in in a washing machine and spin in a dryer, and they're in the spin cycle. And Ponzinibbio, very, very tough too.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of importance on that fight too. Both men are top 15, I believe, if not top 10. And along with that, we have the second fight of Chidi and Jaquani after his successful debut. And I think it's funny because I think that's Dusko. They're calling it Durko Todorovic. I think it's Dushko.
It's Dushko.
It is Dushko. Yep. That's what I thought. Yeah. Okay. And that's an interesting fight. I definitely think Chidi can win that fight. but Dushko is tough. Polyana Viana and Tabitha Ricci is an interesting fight to have on the main card. Both women, I think, have nearly as many losses as wins. No, I am wrong on that. No, I am wrong. Yeah. Ricci is not who I thought she was. There we go. That's a different person. Okay, so Ricci is tough. She did get handled by Manon Fior, although Fior has been kind of handling everyone. Isn't Ricci only like 22 or something? I think she's really young. No, 27. All right, so she's 6-1. Polyana Viana is the one. Well, she has more wins than losses, and she's actually coming off 2 wins. Okay, then bite my tongue. I will say this though: I still don't know that a Polyana Viana versus Tabitha Ricci fight merits a main card anywhere. So I'm a little bit surprised. But anyway, it should be interesting. I think both women maybe could say they're in the top 20 because that division's not that deep.
Right.
And then we got Eric Anders against Jun Young Park. Korean fighters are always super tough. Eric is a great guy, your boy. We've had him on the show several times, and I think he's placed well there. Joseph Holmes, we did have on the show prior to his UFC debut.
I was just gonna say,
and he did lose that fight. But it was against a very tough fighter in Jamie Pickett. And I think he's got an easier spot here. What country is that? I've never seen that flag before, I don't think. Where is that?
Zupa.
Zupa. No, Macedonia.
Macedonia.
Macedonia. Wow, he may be the only Macedonian fighter in the UFC. I may be wrong, but he might be. And this is probably his UFC debut, isn't it? Let's take a look. And no, it isn't. No, he's actually 0-2. And this is tough because this means your back's against the wall here. And it's going to be a good fight. I still think Joseph Holmes can win this. I think Joseph is a very talented guy, and I think he just came up against a more experienced Jamie Pickett. But I think he's going to beat Amedovski, and I think Holmes is a 2-1 favorite. But Amedovski's going to be fighting hard, man. You got to know that if you lose that third on a 3-fight contract, almost without a doubt, you're out.
Right.
26 years old for Holmes. He's so young. And how about Amedovski? He's similarly young. Is he or is he not?
Look.
Let's see.
Let's look.
And he is 34. Ooh, boy, does he not want to lose. Because in all honesty, Adam, and people watching, if you're 34 years old and you lose 3 fights out of 3 in the UFC and you're cut, unlikely you're going to get back in.
And Joseph Holmes is favored in that one about 2-1.
Yeah, so. He is. So this is probably, although the Macedonian's going to fight really hard for sure. I hate to see anyone lose their job. Jailton Alameda is a very tough guy against Parker Porter, a guy with a unique body for a heavyweight, but he's a tough guy. Parker Porter is
right after saying that.
Right? Can you say Parker Porter 10 times fast? Parker Porter. He is coming off a couple.
Good way to get yourself in trouble with him.
That is true. Well, he's a tough guy. I wouldn't want to.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I wouldn't want to mess with him.
No. But he's coming off what 3 wins in a row. So you know what? Why do they have him as a 2.5-1 dog? Let's take a look at Jailton Alameda. His nickname should be the Jail Man. Let's see. Jailton.
It's more than 2.5-1 for him.
It is. Let's see what was it. Yeah, wow, it's like 6-1.
Mm-hmm.
Who is this guy? Let's take a look at Jailton Almeida. So he is 30 years old. He's got a good record. What, 15-4? Is that it? Okay, let's see what he's done. So he's got 1 UFC fight, only 1, but he's a finisher. Look at that. So he's Dana White. Wow, he finished his opponent in his first UFC fight. He finished his opponent in the Contender Series, and then every fight is a finish before that. Wow, look. Well, there's 1 decision which he lost.
Yeah, he's a hardcore finisher. I get it.
But you know what though?
He's a dangerous man.
He is, but I'll tell you what. He's only finished 1 guy at this level. Mm-hmm. And even though where's he train out of? Does it say to the left there? They're usually wrong on this reference website, but anyway,
LG system.
I have no idea what that is. But anyway, you know what? I think Parker Porter is live here. This is the one thing that is weird. Now, I always say this. It could turn out this guy is really this badass and that he runs right through Parker Porter. But when you take a guy off of 1 UFC fight and say he's just going to absolutely annihilate his opponent who's on a 3-fight win streak in the UFC, hey, I got some money on the dog, Parker Porter. I don't see it. To me, that's an opening. That's an overlay. That shouldn't be 6-1. It should be maybe 2 to 2.5 to 1 if they think Jailton is that good. So, you know, my prediction is Parker Porter may put Jailton back in jail in this one, or at least in the timeout corner. Anyway, I think. Whoa, we're late.
No, we're not late.
No, we're not late. What am I saying? I forgot. Well, no, we're not. We actually 2 minutes away. My watch is screwed up. But
no, it's the right time right now, Colin.
Yeah, but we're not late. We're not late.
It's exactly on time.
Yes.
And he's actually not online, so I'll try to give him a call, but you might want to shoot him a message.
Yeah, try to do that on the Skype. And this is. Do you have the last one that we talked to him on?
7 months ago.
I think it was. Yes.
Yeah, that's the one I'm calling right now.
Okay, let's see.
Not online,
if it's not on, then I'm going to see if he can try to Skype call us. Okay. Hey, Stitch, we tried to Skype call you, but it looks like you're not online. If you could Skype call us, that would be great. Our user ID, as always, is, and then I will type that in. All right. Meanwhile, that I'm doing
he's
this.
online on a different one. Let me call him.
Oh, he said ready when you are. Okay, beautiful.
Skype dance.
My man, how you doing?
Doing well, Stitch. How about yourself?
Get my volume up.
No problem. And when you have a chance, also hit that video icon that looks like
there.
Yeah. When you
Can you hear me, brother?
Yep, I got you, brother. Can you hear me well?
Hold on, it's not. All right, try it again.
No problem. How about now? Can you hear me, brother?
It says speaker off.
All right. No problem. There we go. We got you. Can you hear me, brother?
A lot better.
Good. Yep. Perfect. How about you? Good?
Yeah, good.
Excellent. All right. So I'm going to give you a proper introduction since we are live. Ladies and gentlemen, super excited to have this next guest back on the show. One of the most liked and respected men in the world of combat sports, including MMA, boxing, and kickboxing. The legendary cut man, actor, author, inventor, commentator. The guy's done everything there is to do. We're talking about Mr. Jacob Stitch Duran. Welcome back to the show, Stitch.
Hey, man. Thanks for having me on again, Colin. It's always good talking shop with you, brother.
Absolutely, brother. It's my pleasure, and I really appreciate you. So much stuff to ask. As I was driving over here to the studio, I know we have a half hour, and I was thinking I probably got like 2 hours of stuff I could ask your thoughts on, you know, but I'll remember what we don't get to, and then we can jump in next time. But yeah, but first of all, how are you? What's been going on here in 2022?
You know, I've been real, Colin, you know, when this COVID kicked in, everybody kind of went on lockdown, and got a call from Top Rank that they were going to start doing, I think, 32 shows at the MGM in the bubble. Mm-hmm. So they asked if I'd be one of the house cutmen. And so they brought me and Mike Bazo in, and, you know, and I got to work, you know, which was kind of nice. And the fights were on ESPN. So I got to work with a lot of young fighters that I'd seen before. And so that whole program went good. And then the COVID kind of went to the end, or at the end, and they decided to keep us on. So been doing a lot of boxing. I'm filming Creed 3 right now. We're supposed to do my final week this week, but it got moved back another week in LA. Did 5 weeks in Atlanta. So the movie's come along great. November the 23rd, it comes out. So yeah, I've been busy, man. How about you? How you been?
Pretty good, man. Not doing all those exciting things that you have been doing, but we've been keeping our show going and doing everything I can. And glad that some of the COVID restrictions have gone away. The mask was starting to drive me crazy. So yeah, I'm glad that we're done with that and keeping it going, man. We've been doing some good stuff. We're at 5.5 years on our MMA Power Hour show now, and you know, covering a lot of good UFC events. We had one of our reps covered the event in England a month ago, so our reach is increasing. And yeah, we're happy to keep on doing what we're doing and looking to blow it up, man. You know, what I want to do is something I really don't see any of the other shows doing, Stitch, and I'm sure you'll agree this would be a good idea. I'd love to get to the point where we can have a studio where it looks kind of like the Tonight Show or one of these late night talk shows where, right, where we have me at a desk and have the guys come in, you know, the guests. I think that would look awesome, don't you?
No, 100%. You know, and a lot of people don't realize that I co-hosted a boxing show, a radio show here in Vegas for like 10 years.
Oh, wow.
I came in as the 13th round with Nick Ward. I came in as a guest, and his co-host left, and I came in to fill in, and 10 years later, I kind of left the scene. But I understand, what it
Definitely.
takes to show and to have good people on and to talk shop. So this is something I enjoy doing, and speaking with you is always a lot of energy and a lot of education.
Thank you, Stitch. I really appreciate that. I remember Inside MMA. Did you ever appear on that show?
I don't think so.
But remember, it was great, especially the first few years when they would have the previous guests stay on. I remember I really liked that when they'd have the guests interact with each other, the fighters. And you know what you should do when you have time? Look on YouTube. They did an episode, I think it might have been 2010 or something, where the guests were Joe Rogan, Jason Mayhem Miller, who was kind of at the height of his craziness, and the owner of Access TV, Mark Cuban. And because he was there, they allowed whatever language anyone wanted to use to be used. And it was funny. It was hilarious, actually, to see Mark Cuban, Joe Rogan, and Jason Mayhem Miller interact with Boss and Kenny Rice. Definitely would be worth you checking out if you've never seen that before.
Yeah, what a combination. Anytime you do anything with Boss Rutan, you're in for some deep stuff, man. So
Without a doubt.
Love that, man.
Yep, he's a character, that's for sure.
Yeah, I love Boss, man. He's a good man.
Definitely. So let me ask you really quick, how surprised were you at the Canelo Bivol result? I kind of thought that was going to be a tough fight for Canelo, but what did you think before the fight, and what are your thoughts after that fight?
Yeah, I knew it was going to be a tough fight. Number one, because of the height, but number two is I've said it for the longest time. Russians are coming in and they're making major statements. These guys could fight. They come in with a lot of heart, a lot of soul, but on this fight here, in the first round, I told my wife, Bivol is keeping Canelo at a distance. Canelo can't cut the gap, and he couldn't cut the gap, and be effective with his punches. That's why he went to the arms, because he couldn't hit the head.
Right.
Unfortunately, he didn't have a plan B and a plan C, and just maybe a little overconfident.
Yeah.
Success got to him, but sometimes you need this kind of fight to make you better for the next one.
Without a doubt. And speaking of the next one, do you think there will be a rematch? And if so, what would the result be?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think there has to be a rematch. Canelo's going to have to learn how to cut the gap. Skill-wise, he's just as good as Bivol. But like I said, when you can't hit your target, you can't really show your hardware as well as as you want. So it'd be a tough one to call. Somebody will knock somebody out, because I think it's going to be that kind of fight where Canelo could now cut him off, cut the corners and rush him into the corners and get whatever he can, and then manhandle him and get a little bit more aggressive.
Yeah, I think that's very possible. Although I've noticed, I've known for a while from watching boxing, not as long as you have, but for many years, I have noticed kind of a phenomena, and it doesn't seem to play out that much in MMA, but in a lot of boxing title fights over the last 40 years, frequently the winner of the first fight also wins the second fight. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, well, it's you walk in with a lot more confidence, and I was at the Mayweather gym today when Rolly Romero's going to be fighting Devin Haney, and not Devin Haney, Gervonta Davis.
Right.
And they were doing the media day for him, but yeah, it's you always got to prepare for the worst case scenario, and and then you see what happens, and you make your adjustments as you go.
Absolutely. Who's the cut person that usually works with Canelo, or is it various people?
Yeah, that's a real good question, and the thing about it, and we were talking about that also, is Canelo Reynosa, Eddie Reynosa, that's the head coach, is also the cut man. And I remember when the late great Diego Corrales, when he fought Castillo, Joe Grusin did the same thing. He was the coach and he was a cut man, and for the second Castillo fight, James Prince brought me in to be the cut man because at such a high level, Colin, of fights like this, you need one guy to specifically concentrate on what he's good at, and then let another guy concentrate on something that he's good at. And that's the type of situation like Vivo. Maybe the exposure, the not knowing what to do, and try to motivate somebody wasn't expected, and they just kind of winged it as they went by.
Without a doubt. So I think it'd be a great move on their part to bring you in to work with Canelo. I think that it would be the first time, if so, right?
Yeah, and on the business aspect, yeah, of course, and it would make sense to. I guess evidently, I haven't been reading up on it, but people have been saying that they've been blasting Reynoso, the coach, for not having that Plan B and Plan C. So they always at that point they not only, I'm not talking about him, but fighters for the most part, they make their specific changes, whether they get a new coach or whether the coach is just going to do that and they bring in a cut man. But if that was a choice, I think my chances would be just as good as anybody else. And in this Creed movie, Canelo kind of makes an appearance, and I'm talking to him on set, and he's asked, first question he asked me is, "How long you been wrapping hands?" So he knows my capabilities.
Yes.
If they were going to choose someone, business sense, it would make sense. And then I'm Mexican, so
right. Yeah, I mean, it would be a perfect fit. It would be a perfect fit. You know what I mean? Because especially with your experience, I mean, you're the best guy to have in there, man. And I think a lot of times your presence is noticed, and I think it gives people confidence. It has to give the fighter confidence, and then also you could obviously speak Spanish to Canelo, and so that's it'd be a great fit. I hope that happens. I would love to see that.
Well, hey, if it doesn't, you could honestly say you're the first one to ever bring it up.
Yeah, that's right.
Nobody's brought it up, and but if that situation was, and you never know, this situation was to fall like that where you make an adjustment, then my chances are as good as anybody else. So
that would be awesome. And if it ends up happening, you can throw out my name. That's the guy that does a suggestion. That would be great if there's ever an opportunity to do that.
Yeah, here's where the good karma comes in. Colin, he already told me, man, that you should be the chosen one. So yeah, of course, I'll give you a plug. That's how we work.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. I really appreciate it. So what do you think about this talk between Francis Ngannou and Tyson Fury? I mean, I'm sure you'd like to see it as much as anyone else would like to see it. The fact that they actually did bring Ngannou into the ring after the Tyson Fury fight, I think doesn't guarantee anything, but it kind of shows that they're a little bit more serious than some people thought they were. And I think that the one thing I wanted to get your thought on, kind of how you see that match, playing out, B, what your thought is about how likely it is to happen, but maybe even more so the thought that Tyson Fury kind of threw out there that he'd be willing to make it a modified rules fight, but the only modification would be that it would be a boxing match with 4-ounce MMA gloves. What's your thought about all the above pertaining to that possible fight?
Yeah, you gotta love Tyson Fury, man, because he's like Jake Paul, where everything is the marketing aspect. But in today's age of sports entertainment, Colin, the social media fights are pretty strong in what they do. I've worked the ones with KSI, with Logan Paul, with Jake Paul, and so I've been in the mix with those, and I understand the billing part of it. To me, you know what? Go for it. As if Ngannou has a chance to make $45 million, let the young man make $45 million.
Yep.
Right. And then support it as much as they can. Going into the MMA gloves, okay, I could see that as a benefit, but I don't think it's necessary, because you could base, for the most part, you're going to do an extra.
For the most part, you can do what? I didn't hear that last thing.
For the most part, it's going to be an exhibition,
right?
Fight exhibition, right? So let them use boxing gloves. No sense getting into cuts that you don't need and situations like that. But yeah, listen, I'm 100% for that program. I don't know if the UFC is going to let Ngannou do it, but shit, if I was Francis Ngannou, I'd say, you know what, I'm going to do it with or without your permission, and if you're going to sue me for $1 million, I'll give you $1 million.
Right.
Know?
I think that's his thought. Yeah, I think that's his thought. I really do, because I think he's very serious about doing this and getting paid. Do you think if somehow and it sounds like you already kind of made yourself somewhat clear on that, although do you think that the MMA gloves wouldn't really be relevant or a factor, or it wouldn't help Francis Ngannou in that fight, or do you think it could help him?
No, I don't think so. It's number one, Francis, as good as he is in MMA, boxing's entirely different. And as like I told Tyson Fury, you move like water, as Bruce would say. Remember, you move water. Well, that's the way Tyson Fury is. It would be tough for Francis to get in there and get one solid shot. Not to say he can't, but I think the chances are harder for him than they are for Tyson Fury to connect on Francis Ngannou. So you want to make it an entertainment fight, but you also want to, you want to protect these guys. It's a show of entertainment, not to see who's better or who's not.
Absolutely. One thing that I don't hear people talking about as much in Tyson Fury, and I'm not expecting a lot of critique from a guy who's doing so well, but I've watched boxing for 40 years, and boxing a lot better than I do, but from watching it for 40 years, I've noticed that, maybe even a little longer, I noticed that Tyson Fury's actual technique and ability to throw straight punches really crisp, and it's not really that great. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but he doesn't look like a guy who would be teaching technique to any upcoming fighters. Am I wrong on that? His defense is great and he hits hard, but it doesn't look like he's got a hell of a lot of technique or in straight crisp punching.
Or body structure.
Right.
He's the last guy that you would see and say, oh yeah, he's the heavyweight champ of the world. But just like Floyd Mayweather has his own style, that nobody's going to be Floyd Mayweather. And the same thing with Tyson Fury, is his style cannot be duplicated by any other heavyweight.
Right.
It's his style. And I seen him in the gym working out, and everything that he does it according to the way he wants to do it.
Yeah.
So there's no rhyme or there's no rhythm, but there is actually style, and he's very good at that.
Right, definitely. Did you see the comment that Anthony Joshua feels he would beat Fury convincingly? What do you think of that?
Yeah, that's why I don't like making predictions and all that, Colin, because none of us know. It's nice to have that confidence in Anthony Joshua, and not to say he's not capable. These guys are all A-level fighters. So, and anything is capable of happening. And, me in my job, that's why I always prepare for the worst case scenario, and I'm sure, these guys are looking for their best case scenario, and the best case scenario is to knock somebody out.
Absolutely. So what do you think about the fact that a big difference kind of in the combat sports landscape nowadays as compared to, let's say, 5 years ago, is 5 years ago it was so much boxing against MMA. The two had nothing to do with each other. People that love boxing were criticizing MMA. People that love MMA were saying boxing is dead and it's your father's sport or your grandfather's sport. Now it seems like because of the Paul brothers and Tyson Fury talking about it, and MMA fighters coming in and boxing, that they're kind of working together in a way, and it seems like the promoters are kind of somewhat happy about it. At least the boxing promoters don't seem to be talking down about it, and Dana, I know, doesn't like the Paul brothers that much, but he's not really talking down about the idea, and it seems like this is kind of like a meshing of the worlds. Is that something that you think we might see more of, and as time goes by, 5-10 years, we might see even more of these crossover matches, and they might even be more competitive? And the second part of that, will some of these crossover matches ever start happening in MMA, or do you think they're pretty much all going to be in boxing?
A lot of good questions. Yeah, I think they'll all be in boxing, only because, MMA, you're dealing with so many different weapons.
Yep.
to only 2, and will it be long term? What's it going to be 5 years from now? I don't know. It all started with the Zone when they came. KSI, when he fought Logan Paul, I worked with KSI for 6 weeks here in Las Vegas, and I didn't really know who these guys were, but they each had like 20 million followers, right? And they're big stars. But for the Zone to have that as a subscribe program, it went very well for them. But I knew it was different world, because when I walk into the Staples Center, as we walk in as a team, we go to the dressing room, we put our stuff away, and then the coaches, the ones working the corner, we'll go to ringside, and then we'll look at the ring of the situation and see where each position we will position ourselves in. But when I'm walking in, all the people knew who the coaches were from. They were KSI's coaches. A lot of them didn't know who I was.
Wow.
So it was a different caliber of people, and a lot of young kids.
Yeah.
But for the Zone to have created that made a whole lot of sense, and it's been successful ever since. And I was supposed to have been in London the week after the Fury fight to do one of these social media fights with the Iranian Oak and Martin Ford, big old giants, right?
Yes, I heard of that.
Yeah, and that was going to be at the O2 Arena, but that got scratched. But so it is happening, and how long it's going to continue, I don't know. We'll see what happens, but yeah, I think they ought to stick to the boxing gloves, and it's entertainment.
Without a doubt. The only person that went the other route, went into MMA, was close to 15 years ago when James Toney agreed to jump into MMA. And it's interesting because I guess I don't know whether James Toney had ever thought about trying to entice an MMA fighter to box him, or the bottom line is that he probably wouldn't have got any takers that would have presented a serious challenge. So we got to give it up to James Toney, because he may have been the only guy then, now, and possibly in the future that actually said, let me jump into MMA. And I think you were working with the UFC then too, weren't you?
Yeah, actually, I wrapped James Toney's hands, and I wrapped Randy Couture's hands, and I worked Randy's corner, and that was that perfect situation that I'm talking about, or we're talking about. I'm not making the transition into the MMA because James Toney, the only thing he knows is stand up.
Right.
And Randy took him down, and once he took him down, that's like having an octopus on you, and you can't hold your breath.
Right.
That's what happened to James Toney. So he was at the wrong place at the wrong time. But nonetheless, but going way, way, way back, Francois Botha fought Bonjour Romansky in kickboxing. Francois Botha, South African.
Oh, wow.
Bonjarski kicked him in the leg, and Francois Botha, he said, Stitch, it hurt so much, I almost felt like throwing up.
Wow.
Because they weren't programmed for anything below the belt.
Right.
And so it doesn't make sense. If you're going to, get into a combat sport, just stick into boxing.
Without a doubt. What I remember also in that Toney and Couture fight, Couture did that low ankle pick, keeping himself out of harm's way, although he could have got caught coming in, but he did. And I think they exchanged a couple punches. But one of the things I remember was on the ground when Toney was on his back, his corner was like yelling jiu-jitsu instructions to him, and it didn't look like he was doing any of them. Now, having Randy Couture on top of you, and Couture early in his career had been submitted a couple times, so he had learned pretty well what you wanted to do with the top pressure and staying close and compressing. And so, but it kind of seemed like, like some people were kind of learning the idea that even if you studied 2 months, 4 months, 8 months, I don't think he had much study in there. It doesn't mean you can do anything under fire, when you're a white belt in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, the thing about it, Colin, in combat sports, the only thing that counts is the truth, and you're absolutely right. 8 weeks of training is not going to help you defend against Randy Couture. It's just not going to happen.
No. I read something interesting on that fight just the other day, and I'm sure this is crap, and I'm sure you'll agree that you had never heard of anything like this, but someone posted somewhere that James Toney was talking about that fight and was angry because Couture told him he was gonna keep it on the feet the whole time. I find that kind of hard to believe. What do you think?
Yeah, I've never heard that. So I don't know, but I think James Toney was, yeah, he was happy to do what he did, and you're right. He could say I went down in history and was the only guy to do this.
Yeah, he was such a tough guy. I remember back
Ah,
right in the early '90s. Remember, he was known as the champion that would agree to fight the number one contender every 3 months. And even then, even though it's worse now, I think, but even then, a lot of guys, it would take a couple years for them to agree to fight number one because they didn't want to take that risk. And one thing I remember about Tony was every fight he's like, give me number one, give me number one. He'd fight number one 3 months later, 4 months later, he'd fight number one ranked contender again. 4 months later, I mean, that's one of the things that I think people who don't know him and look at that MMA fight as not looking good, but he was known as the guy that didn't run from anybody at any time.
yeah, and same as Mike McCallum, the
Yeah.
body snatch. Tommy Hearns and Marvin Hagler, Sugar Ray Leonard, Duran at that time didn't want to fight him because they didn't need him.
Right. I remember.
James,
Go ahead.
with James Toney, he was such a threat. And, I always said James Toney and Bernard Hopkins are the last two fighters that learned or that had the skills of doing tactical moves without the referee finding you out.
Right.
And they were good at that.
Without a doubt. And I remember both Tony McCallum fights. The first one was so close because McCallum had so much experience advantage on Tony and was just kind of twisting him into knots with that movement. And that fight could have gone either way. I know Tony got the decision, but by the rematch, I think it was about a year and a half later, whether it was a little bit of age catching up with McCallum or just Tony kind of learning from him. And I think maybe it was some of both. Tony looked even better, and I think that was a great fight. It's too bad that Tony never got Roy Jones again. That first fight just was a debacle where I don't know if he missed weight or whatever it was. He was completely drained and had nothing for Roy Jones. And then right after that, he went up in weight and never saw Roy again. That would have been fun. But so let me see how much time we have here. We got about 12, 13 minutes. So what are you looking at that's exciting you as far as boxing matches or MMA matches that are coming up?
I don't know. I just kind of play them by ear. But, I'm working a lot of these. I'm working, June the 11th, I'll be in New York. I'm working with Xander, the young kid Xander and Berlanga. This part of the Top Rank program where we're the house fighters. The week after, I'm working with Joe Smith, that's fighting Beterbiev, and that's another Russian fighter, that's coming in. That's that's the new guns in town. And I've worked with Joe Smith, I think, for the last 4 or 5 fights, and it's going to be a tough fight. So, yeah, I don't know. Bernard Hopkins. I mean, I'm sorry, Earl Spence. They're talking about Earl Spence and to Terrence Crawford.
Yes.
I worked with Ugas when he fought Earl Spence, and Spence at this point, I got all the respect for him because, and then Ugas got a lot of respect for him because he came in as a major underdog and did well until he broke his cheekbone, and then it started going down. But yeah, I just want to see good fights.
Any prediction if Spence fights Crawford?
I don't predict them. I tell you.
Yeah, that's true.
And but no, that's the type of fight that I think would go the distance.
Yeah,
that I could tell you, and whether somebody will need a cut man or not, maybe just keep an eye on them. But I think strategic wise, they're both at the top of their game.
Absolutely. So I remembered something I really wanted to ask you. So many kids are wanting to be stars in combat sports, and they're wanting to be champions, or wanting to be role models, or wanting to be heroes, are wanting to help their family and have a lot of great intentions to be really successful. Yet, because of how many kids are trying to be champions in boxing and MMA, very few get there. You've been You've been in the corner of so many MMA champions and boxing world champions. Can you tell me some of the things that you've noticed, like some of the similarities in some of these champions, character traits, like if you see consistency all the time, or maybe even a couple or a few character traits or personality traits that you've noticed that are similar in the guys that are really, really great?
Yeah, man, that's a real good question.
Thank you.
Yeah, I've seen the traits, but for all these young guys, and like I say, I'm at the gyms all the time. I was at Mayweather's gym today, Bones Adams' gym, Salas's gym, just kind of visiting the guys.
Mhm.
But everybody in the gym is there for one purpose, and that's to become a world champion and financially be successful. But the old adage is that 1% of the fighters make 99% of the money,
Right.
and that's usually the truth, right? But what gets those guys to that level, man? You look at these guys making millions of dollars, and I learned to realize that what, they earned every penny of it. And like Rolly Romero, that's fighting Gervonta Davis, I've known him since he was a young kid, him and his father, and they came from Cuba, and I mean, they used to his dad. Rolly used to walk into the gym with his dad with just shorts on and sandals, and no shirt. It was nice and hot in summer, but they had that island lifestyle, and so he grew up in the game, but they came from hard times, and now to see where he's at right now, he's gonna make a very hefty paycheck that's gonna literally lift him out of where he's at and put him on the right track, win or lose. He's gonna make some money. So there's that. What's it take to get to those points? It's a lot of sacrifices.
Yeah.
I guess one way to put it is, years ago I interviewed Mike Tyson, and I asked Mike, I said, every fighter has that one little thing that nobody in the world has, that it takes to be a special fighter. What's that one little thing? I asked Mike Tyson. Very simply, he says, take the pain. You have to take the pain. And as I thought about it, I said, man, he's absolutely right, because you go through pain in training, you go through pain in the fights, you go through pain in your personal life, you go through pain in your health. It's a long, long road of sacrifices to get where you get to go. And when these guys get to the top, I have to applaud them. And a lot of them come from very underprivileged stories. So those are success stories, and that's why I love working with so many of these guys.
Absolutely, very well stated, and it's definitely got to be such an amazing experience that you've had for decades. I was thinking about it also when I was coming over to the studio driving, that like you and Freddie Roach are probably two of the guys that have been in this game the longest, that have been in the more championship fights and top contender fights, and got to be with more champions than anyone else. And I think I remember when I spoke with you last year, I think that you really had not worked with him until that fight, about 2 years ago, for the first time. Whose corner was that again?
That was with Freddie Roach?
Yeah.
Man, I don't know.
I think it was in Los Angeles like 2 years ago.
Oh, okay. Man,
I'm sorry to put you on the spot. I forgot you're cornering people every week almost. So sorry about that. But
yeah, and done multiple shows because of this work with Top Rank in the Bubble as the house cutman. I've done multiple shows with him, but I was with him with Jesse Vargas.
That was it. Yep, Jesse Vargas. Yeah. And man, and I remember Freddie was a fighter, and then he was, a lot of people probably don't know that are younger, Freddie was kind of like the protege of Eddie Futch, Papa Smurf.
Yes, Eddie Futch. When I first moved to Vegas, I got to see Eddie Futch work, Thal Torrance, all these guys, the veteran coaches when I first got here, and Freddie went under his tutelage. So I'll tell you a real good story. You're talking about Mike McCallum fighting James Toney. I worked with Mike McCallum on the second fight.
Oh wow!
That Mohican Sun, and James Toney always had problems getting on the scale.
Right.
So he gets on the scale, and Freddie Roach is behind him, and I don't know if he's gonna try to help him, make weight somehow by doing this or doing that. So I said, "Hey, Freddie, can you step back?" He said, "Fuck you." He goes, "I'm double." He just jumped all over me.
Right.
And years later, when I told you I used to do the radio show, we had him on as a guest, and my partner Nick Ward asked him about that moment. He said, "Well, he busted me. What else was I going to do?" that was a great story with Freddie Roach.
Absolutely, and it was great seeing you guys together. That was definitely the power corner. I was at that fight. I remember I saw you there walking down. I think we had pretty decent seats, but I told one of the buddies I was watching with, I said, "Man, that's a power corner right there with Stitch Duran and Freddie Roach." And so definitely a great team. Now, I think we got maybe 5 minutes left, Stitch. So really quick, didn't Freddie had a stroke like 20 or 30 years ago, didn't he?
I think so. Well, I don't know if he did or not. I know he has Parkinson's disease.
Okay, so it was something, and he sure is inspirational, because I don't think he's really lost a step even since that, and with that, has he?
No, I think I saw an interview where he was saying doing pads and doing what he does with these guys is keeping his mechanics going, kind of like just putting, just keeping them lubricated and keeping them going. So yeah, he's managing. He's doing a great job, man. And I got a lot of respect for Freddie.
Absolutely, he's a great guy. Man, so many other things to ask. Before we go, though, any update on the movie that's being made from both of your books, From the Field to the Garden? I know you have part 1, the original book, and then volume 2, I think the second book, right? And then the movie, I think, was just about to start before the pandemic. Catch me up on where that stands now.
Yeah, we're pretty much done. I mean, we're interviewing Michael B. Jordan. He's coming on board and giving his 2 cents on that. It's a documentary called From the Fields to the Garden. You're right. It's based on the book, and so and we went to my hometown, Granada, and interviewed some of my friends and some of my family. And 7 o'clock in the morning, we're out in the fields, and they're interviewing some of the farm workers and all that. So got some great interviews and got some good footage, and they're gonna finish up by coming to Vegas and filming me footage, and then interview my immediate family. And for the most part, hopefully by the end of the year, they'll be coming out.
That's awesome. I can't wait to see that. And is there any distributor you have in mind? Is it going to be like in the theaters or documentary? Probably not. What, like HBO, or Showtime, or what?
Netflix? Yeah, it's more HBO, Netflix type of thing. But no, these guys, and Uriah Faber is one of the producers. And, Gerald Roxburgh is the producer, and Danny Acosta, the director. And these guys, that's what they do. I just said, you build it and I will come.
I love it. Awesome. And I know Faber, a good fellow Northern Californian, just like you were for many years.
Yeah. And then, Michael B. Jordan here, he has his own production company. So, I'll be talking to him about it. And of course, we'll make it happen.
Absolutely. In the last 1 minute I have you, Stitch, what's your advice to stay as vibrant, energetic, and young as you do? Every year you're still upbeat, you're still in good health and in good shape and got so much energy. What's your advice for those of us that are over 40, over 50, or people even older than that?
Hey, man, just enjoy life, man. It's wonderful. You give me all these compliments, but you're right. I feel good. I feel blessed. I'm lucky. I know I am. I'm the chosen one. I know I am. So I got to kind of make life as best as I can, not only for me, but for everybody around me. Just so much positive energy, bro. And I try to stay away from all this crap that goes around, and just, it's not my nature. And I don't get in people's businesses. And I just enjoy life. And how can you not love doing what I'm doing? It's not even a job; it's an adventure.
Absolutely, well stated, man. Want to thank you so much, brother, for coming back on, Stitch. I look up to you so much, and it's a treat to be able to talk to you again, and an honor. And I really appreciate your time, brother.
Anytime, Colin. You talk about 2 hours worth of conversation. Yeah, give me a call, man. We'll chip off another quarter of the conversation.
Absolutely. Will do. I appreciate the invite, and we'll take you up on that for sure.
All right. Take care, my man. God bless.
You too. God bless. Have a good night. And that was Jacob Stitch Duran. Ladies and gentlemen, most of you guys know him. If you don't, then, as Dana White would say, if you don't know, now you know. The guy's been
don't
working.
know, you might be a little crazy.
If you don't know, you crawled out from under a rock, or you're under 25 or 30 years old. He is the probably only really famous cut man, and in numerous world champion boxing fights, numerous dozens, hundreds of champion boxing fights and MMA fights. He was with the UFC for several years and then moved on from there. And so, you know, he's created, as a cut man, he's created products that help to protect fighters and that other cut people can use. A lot of people that are working on people's cuts learned from him, either directly or from videos or books that he put out. Just known as a really kind man who respects everyone, and he's just a great guy. It's just
absolutely.
A treat.
So everybody that's on our social media, head on over to the Hannibal TV on YouTube and Facebook. Make sure to subscribe, like, follow, share, tweet, retweet, do all the fun stuff. Help us out. It's also at MMA Power Hour for our social media for everybody else out there that's on the Hannibal TV right now. If anybody wants to ask any questions of our guests, usually we'll probably pop off the questions you're looking to have answered. We're actually really good about that. But if you are asking a question while they're live or before or whatever, and you want us to do that because we've missed it so far in the interview, make sure to throw us a tip here on YouTube, and we will make sure to answer it or have it asked. We do have our next guest here ready to go, Colin. We do have him this week.
Let's get him, man.
No, we were going to do it right now. We're not going to waste the opportunity.
Right, exactly.
There it is.
Hello, Curtis. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. I hear you.
Excellent. Is hit that camera icon that looks like an old movie camera. Should be right below the screen, and then we'll have good. We can see you there, and as long as you can see yourself on the screen, that's good. You won't be able to look directly at us, but as long as you're in, perfect. And you can hear me clearly?
Yes, sir.
Excellent. Great. Let me give you a proper introduction since we are live. Ladies and gentlemen, happy to have this guest on the show. We spoke to them a few years back, and good things are worth waiting for. One of my favorite and most exciting UFC heavyweight contenders. The man I think is number 3 in the world now. We're talking about Curtis Razor Blades. Welcome back to the show, Curtis.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys having me back on the show.
You're very welcome. But yeah, I tell you, I think it's been 3.5 years since we talked to you last. I think you may have just beaten Justin Willis or something. And remember, he had talked all kinds of trash before that fight.
Yes, sir. Yeah. So I remember that.
Yeah. So it's been a while. I think you've had like maybe 8 or 10 fights since then. A lot of fights under your belt. A lot of great victories. You're still a young man at 31. And this is a big fight coming up on July 23rd against the Englishman, Tom Aspinall. Question for you, because you are the higher ranked fighter, although he's been jumping in the rankings, but you're the more known commodity. You're the guy that people, I think, believe in more and know more than him, but yet you did agree to a fight in England. Was that something that took you a second to agree to, or were you like, I don't care where it's at, I'll fight this guy in a phone booth?
Yeah, I mean, it really didn't matter like where we fought at. I just wanted a top 5 opponent, and I was happy to get one. He's got a lot of hype. He is legit. He just beat Volkov, so yeah, I didn't care if it was in England or wherever. Just happy to get the fight.
Gotcha. And so, in the audience there, I think they're going to be yelling out that ole, ole, ole. It seems like they love to do that in England. I think it almost is like, meaning like someone's bullfighting or something like that, and they're hoping that their guy's going to be the matador, you know what I mean? Yeah. But I know when you charge in, you normally take someone down. You don't normally miss too much. But this is an interesting matchup for sure. I looked at his record. I'm familiar with both of you guys, and I watch a ton of fights, and we cover the fights in person as well when we can. But I was looking at his record. He's had a few UFC fights, and all the fights he's had, he's won by stoppage. Before that, in the UFC, he had 2 losses, one by disqualification and one by submission. And then every single other pro fight that he's won has been by stoppage. He's never been outside the 2nd round, and a majority of his fights end in the 1st round. And so what's interesting with a guy like that is that what's he going to do when he has to see the 3rd round and the 4th round or the 5th round, if you even give him that chance. But what's your thought? And have you ever gone up against a guy who was just constantly finishing people early?
Yeah, I think that's the standard for a lot of heavyweights. They like to come out swinging, coming out aggressive, and he must have realized early on he had an advantage with the speed in the hands, and he took advantage of those. A lot of his early opponents. But I'm used to guys like that. That's the majority of heavyweights. A lot of heavyweights are looking to get in, get out really early. I think on the opposite, I liked the longer the fight goes, I feel like the smarter I get and the more effective I become as a fighter.
Absolutely, well stated. So you both are right in your prime. You're just 2 years older than him. You're 31, he's 29. Heavyweights are pretty much in their prime until like 35, and many heavyweights are still looking great at 40 and even further. You will absolutely be the toughest guy he will have fought. Volkov was a very tough guy, but I think as far as the high level wrestling, if you can click on, I'm gonna ask my producer to click on Aspinall and let me see. So let's see who we're looking at. So basically going back, even including a couple Cage Warriors fights, he fought Alexander Volkov. You're good there, doctor. Volkov is not a wrestler. Sergey Spivak has some wrestling, but not really that much. Arlovsky is not a wrestler. Alan Baudot, I think, is not really a wrestler. Jake Collier has a little bit, but not much. And then Cage Warriors, I don't even know who these guys are. So without a doubt, you're absolutely levels above anyone that he's gone against before with wrestling. And so I think that's going to be a factor. In fact, he seems to kind of be a better wrestler than most of the guys that he's gone against. And so when the matchup is like that, would you think that his corner is going to say to themselves, we're not really going to try to wrestle with Curtis because he's just going to beat us, so we're just going to try to like show our great striking skills and pick Curtis apart? Or do you think B, they're going to say, well, we don't care, Curtis may be a D1 wrestler, but our guy is going to out wrestle Curtis? What would you think their thought is?
Honestly, I have no idea. It's all about the confidence they have in their fighter and the confidence he has in his training. Like, if he believes he can wrestle with me, who am I to think that he's not going to believe in himself? I expect all my opponents to believe in themselves and their abilities. I wouldn't be shocked if he attempted to take me down. Also, I wouldn't be shocked if he was highly conservative and didn't want to be that aggressive. Usually, a lot of times when I fight guys, I'm the aggressor, but it's a fight, and fights are chaos. That's why I don't really watch a lot of film. I don't really do a lot of breakdowns, because regardless of what a guy did in the past, in this specific fight, who knows what he'll be? He might be the aggressor, he might not be.
That's true, and you never know. Have you ever fought in England or in Europe anywhere before? Forgive me for not remembering. And we lost Curtis Blades. But in this situation, doctor, we should try him back. Hey, Curtis, we lost you there. Can you hear me? Curtis?
Apologies. I had a phone call and I tried to hit decline and I missed.
No problem at all, my friend. No problem. Apology accepted. No problem at all. So, have you ever fought over in Europe before?
Yeah, I've fought in Croatia. That's where I had my debut at against Ngannou.
Gotcha. So, what's your feeling about that? Does the long plane ride bother you at all? I'm sure it's not as fun as if you didn't have to take a long plane ride. But at 31, I don't think a long plane ride should be too much trouble. What's your thought about that, or the jet lag, or any thought about getting used to it? And how much in advance do you think you're going to get there? Maybe a week or so, or is that a secret?
I'll probably get there about 11 days early. This isn't my first long distance fight. I've fought in Croatia, Australia, Beijing. So I kind of already have an idea of what to do. And I wouldn't ever blame a loss on traveling or being tired because I was on a long flight. It's not enough to impact the fight. So I'm not too worried about the long flight.
Absolutely. Does Aspinall remind you of any of your opponents, or a combination of any two of your opponents?
No, he's his own fighter. He got his own unique set of skills. He relies on the boxing, and he seems to be pretty explosive, and he does have a bit more of grappling in him than a majority of my opponents. But no, there's not really any similarities between anyone else I've ever fought.
Gotcha. Have you run into him at all, or his camp at all?
Nope.
Gotcha.
Never had any interactions with him.
Gotcha.
Or anyone he knows.
Do you expect any sort of trash talking or anything?
I don't expect it, but if it happens, I don't engage. That's not my thing. I'm not a promoter. That's the UFC's. That's what they're supposed to do, and I'm there to fight, and that's what I'll do. I don't do all the extra stuff.
Absolutely. Now, obviously, in England, not that people don't like you, but their local guy is Aspinall. So obviously, in England, they're going to be hoping he wins, and the fans, are really going to be cheering for him. Has that ever been the case? I'm sure you fought in other people's hometown. Have you ever fought somewhere where the whole crowd is going to be cheering against you because the other guy's the hometown kid?
Yeah, I've fought Mark Hunt in Australia, so I doubt Aspinall has more fans than Hunt did, and that didn't affect me. It's just people in the crowd. Honestly, I can't even hear what they're saying. It's all white noise.
Makes sense. So what are you doing for this camp? Anything different? I mean, I'm sure that's also asking secrets that you probably can't tell, but you got a guy here who I think is just as tall as you, although once in a while online they make mistakes. I don't know if you've noticed this, but frequently reference sites mess that up. They'll say one guy's 6'2" and he's 6'5", or they'll say, they said Jairzinho Rosenstruck is 6'5", and I think he's just barely over 6 feet tall. So I think, though, that you and Aspinall are probably similar height, or do you think I'm wrong?
No, I think we're about the same height. He might have a half inch on me.
Okay. And then the weight, is that similar for you guys, or who's heavier?
I think I'm a little heavier than he is. I'll probably be in the octagon at 260. I think he gets in there like 245-ish.
Cool. And have you been told anything about winning this fight, getting you a title shot, if I may ask?
Nope. And honestly, I really don't care. Putting energy into things I don't have any control over is futile, and I stopped doing that a couple years ago. So I'm honestly expecting after this, most likely the winner of Hui Toss and Cyril Gane.
Interesting. And that is a good thought. I like I think that's a biblical verse, isn't it? God, it's like the serenity prayer, right? Give me the strength to change the things I can, to, not worry about the things that I can't change, and the power to know the difference. Isn't it something like that?
Yeah, I've heard that before. It's just easier. There isn't any point in me being all stressed out about something that's obviously I don't have any control over. I could go out there and head kick Aspinall in the first round. That doesn't guarantee me a title shot.
Right, absolutely. It'd be exciting. Love to see that. So let me ask you to speculate about something else that doesn't have anything to do with you. Are we going to see Francis Ngannou in another UFC fight? Will he have already been stripped of his title? Is he not going to be stripped of his title? What would your guess be on that?
If I were him, I would retire from MMA. He's already done enough. He's not going to earn as much as he would earn in boxing. I would take the bag, take the opportunity to earn $40 million. I don't know if the UFC is gonna strip him. That's another. I don't know. That's up to them.
Right.
You never know with the UFC, so you'd be a fool to actually think that anyone knows what they're gonna do.
Without a doubt. If that fight, if that fight does happen with Tyson Fury, does Francis have a chance? He'd probably be like a 10-1 underdog. I don't think even if they allow the fight with 4-ounce gloves, I don't know if that will matter. But what do you think?
Yeah, I think he has a chance. He's got the power, and honestly, I've watched a lot of Tyson Fury's fights. The boxing, I don't know. I don't think his footwork is very good. I think he's very hittable. He is very tall. He is very long, and he does have power. But I don't think he's the mythical monster everyone thinks him out to be. Like he is a good boxer, but I think he has holes, and I think in Ngannou he does have an opportunity to capitalize on the sloppier footwork.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was just talking to the legendary cut man, Stitch Duran. I don't know if you've heard of him or remember him. I think he may have been in the UFC right when you got there. Did you ever hear of him?
Yeah, I've heard of him. I never got a chance to meet him. I think he's. I don't know if he got fired or if he just decided to not work with the UFC anymore. But he was on after I got there.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, he actually didn't really get fired there. Just to make it quick, and this is because Stitch is a friend of mine, and this is really the truth. You can look back and see right when the Reebok deal came in, and they were telling fighters that you could not wear your sponsor's gear and make money. He basically had his sponsor's gear on his jacket, and they tried to talk to him on that and say, "Why don't you take that off, and we'll give you." A small Reebok sponsorship, and he was like, "Why would I do that?" And they said, "Well, you got to do it." And he was like, "No, I can't. I mean, he was an older man who's supporting, and they're asking him to take a 5,000% pay cut, and he said, "No, we'll pass on that." So
it makes sense.
Yeah. Exactly, but yeah, but we were talking, and I was telling him that Tyson Fury, he does move well, and I know you were mentioning his footwork isn't the greatest. You know a lot more about footwork than I do, so I'm going to take your word on that. But what I have noticed from watching combat sports for decades, I'm a little bit of an older guy, so I've been watching combat sports before you were born, and it does seem to me like he doesn't have the most crisp, straight punches and boxing technique either. He hits really hard, but he wouldn't be a textbook to teach people how to throw punches. No. Right? Yeah. So it does seem like perhaps if Francis could get in there and and land something, but it definitely would be interesting to see. But other than that, if we're looking at Tuivasa and Gane, a lot of people are surprised because Tuivasa was on a little bit of a losing streak for a while. And he was looking like he was just going to kind of be a guy who could never even get into the top 10. Then all of a sudden, he just made some kind of adjustments. And I think a lot of people were surprised that he beat Derek Lewis. But against Gane, Gane has a habit of making people look silly. Although Tuivasa, if he touches you, that's it. How do you feel that fight might play out? Who do you think wins that fight?
I feel like Cyril Gane wins. the same way he was able to beat Eric Lewis, and the same way he beat Junior Dos Santos, and the same way he beat Charginio, picking and popping, and then when they get tired, he's able to catch them with the hands down, and that's where he finds the finish.
Makes sense. And then if it goes that way and you beat Aspinall, then it could be you and Gon. And if they haven't figured things out with Francis, which they may not, then it could be you and Gon for the heavyweight championship, and that would be awesome. But I know you don't want to think that far ahead. Tell me a little bit about how a fighter can maintain such a high level like you do. There's a lot of fighters, and I was talking to Stitch Duran a little bit about this, but there's a lot of fighters that want to be successful. Like a lot of people don't know, like I used to tell girlfriends that I had when we were watching fighters, and she was going, okay, that guy's kind of good, or this guy's not so good. And I used to tell her, these guys are the best of the best. I would say, when you're watching the UFC, think of it as like pro football. When you're in junior high school, everyone can play. By the time you get to high school, a lot of people can't make the team. When you try to play in college, a majority of guys that played high school can't make the team. And when you get into the pros, hardly anybody from college can make the pros. So it's like all the guys getting eliminated as the levels go higher. And I think it's the same in the UFC. You have probably a couple million guys who wanted to be where you are, and they just could not get there. They couldn't even come close. And then some guys get there, and then they start losing every single fight. How do you stay up where you are for a younger guy that wants to be successful? What are you doing? And can you tell me, do you see something similar to what you do, to what other successful fighters do, that allows them to stay at a high level and win?
I mean, for me personally, it's having a solid routine. Consistency is a big thing for me. I don't like to just, like, if I'm doing a jiu-jitsu and we're talking about half guard, I want to talk about half guard for a month, not just a week. I like to dive deep into stuff. That way we can pick it apart and find the things that we like and the things that we don't like, and I'm able to add them into my game. And then having legitimate coaches that they get on me, they tell me when I'm messing up, and I'm very coachable. I like to learn. I like to grow. I don't want to be a stagnant in my growth. Because I know if I'm not getting better, then that means I'm getting worse. And really, I think having a strong background in wrestling, that was a major key for me early on. I really didn't have confidence in my striking, and I just had to rely on my wrestling, and thankfully my wrestling was at the level where I could beat guys with just that. So yeah, just having a consistent routine, good coaches, and it doesn't hurt to have a background in wrestling.
Absolutely. What do you think of some of the matches that we've seen recently in the UFC? There have been some interesting matchups. We've got in the division below you, we've got Glover against Jiri coming up. We just had a really interesting match with Justin Gaethje and Charles Oliveira. It's unfortunate that Oliveira didn't make weight. I don't know if you heard, though, a bunch of people are saying that scale was really different than any of the scales that they had in their hotel room. I mean, if that's the case, then that's a shame. But Oliveira just seems like a beast, and Gaethje's a tough guy. Were you surprised that fight went that way, or did you think it could go both ways, or did you think Oliveira would win that?
I mean, I accepted Oliveira on the ground. He might be top 5 all time, and Gaethje, that's his one weakness. So I knew if it got on the ground, it was probably a wrap, and I knew Gaethje would have to beat him on the feet, and he was able to knock him down twice, but with the hole in his grappling. He wasn't able to take advantage because he didn't want to get in Oliveira's half guard or full guard or whatever. So I wasn't shocked. I was disappointed because Keiichi's a friend of mine, and I was rooting for him. But I knew if he got on the ground, it was most likely a wrap.
Absolutely, and well stated. I kind of felt the same. And then I know also Rose trains out there, I think, with you as well. That was a very unusual fight. I think you may have made a statement online, I'm not sure, because there's all kinds of haters, and I hate that. You know, I have so much respect for you guys that even as a member of the MMA media, I'm never shouting out someone sucks or someone blew it or anything. Yeah. But you see a lot of the keyboard warriors or pointing out that Rose saying she didn't even try and she just ran, and you know, and there shouldn't be that disrespect in that fight. But did you feel the result could have gone either way? Do you feel Rose got ripped off, or what's your feeling on the result and how that fight played out?
On the result, honestly, when you fight like that, it's up to the MMA odds.
Yeah.
So she can't be angry. I wasn't angry because honestly, I didn't know who won that fight. And yeah, in terms of the fans online talking smack, saying she's awful, she's a I mean, it's just those immediate reactions, and that's one of the things I don't like about MMA. I think we have the worst fans out of the collective, like NHL, NBA, NFL, MLB. We have the worst fans. They have the most knee jerk reactions, and they're very wishy-washy. If you're only as good as your last fight. There was a time when everyone was saying those same things that they're saying about her. They were saying it about Izzy. They were saying about Anderson Silva. They were saying about ESP. Yep. They were saying about me. They watch one fight, and that's like your whole resume right there, and that's how they make their judgments. So all Rose has to do is go out there and get another exciting finish, and they'll forget about it.
Absolutely, I agree. And yeah, I think because you know, and it's hard to put the finger on why so many MMA fans can be so crappy and so critical, but I think it might be, you know, that sometimes a guy might be fooled into thinking that he can really fight just because he's trained a little bit, or maybe he wrestled in high school, or maybe he, you know, or maybe he took some, you know, martial arts classes for a while. And I think a lot of guys are kind of fooled into thinking that you guys at the highest level are maybe just slightly better than them. You know what I mean? And you know what I mean? They really think that. They're really thinking, okay, well, these guys are only a little bit better than me, and when they have a bad fight, I could have done better. Or they think if, you know, girl, you know, if they were Rose, they would have gone out there and done this and that, whatever. But it's a lot easier to say and harder to do. That's for sure. Are you also a fan of the sport as far as watching other fighters, or not really, or just a little bit?
I am a fan, but I'll be honest, I don't watch every card because there's so many cards these days. I watch maybe half of them now.
Right. Are any of your teammates coming up in any fights recently? Anywhere soon?
My buddy Neil Magny, he has a fight June 25th at the Apex. His opponent is he's going to be making his UFC debut. I can't pronounce his name. He has one of those long Eastern European names.
Right.
So I can't pronounce it, but he's got one. And then I think he's the only one right now besides me.
Gotcha. Quick question, since we were talking about Charles Oliveira. I know he's probably either going to fight Beneil Dariush, and we've interviewed Beneil several times, or Islam Makhachev, and we've interviewed Makhachev's coach, Javier Mendez, several times. Both would be good fights, but I think they're talking about Makhachev right now. Makhachev is already saying that he'll just beat down Charles Oliveira, and on the ground he'll just beat, he'll beat him down. Oliveira doesn't have a chance. What do you think of that fight? Which way would you lean there, or do you think it's pretty even?
I think it's pretty even, but I would still say I would pick Oliveira because he has more offensive attacks. He's a lot more aggressive with his um, jiu-jitsu. Islam is very defensive, and he hardly ever gets hit. And when he does get takedowns, he's able to dominate. But he hasn't gone against a guy like Oliveira. I think Oliveira's had a lot more experience with high level other high level guys that can have jiu-jitsu and wrestling. So I think he's prepared for this, and I'm honestly I wouldn't be shocked if he was able to get the submission.
That would be amazing. That would be great because these guys from Dagestan are very tough. Any quick thought on Izzy against Jared Cannonier? Can Cannonier bring anything to Izzy?
I think it'll be a tough fight, and he has a puncher's hands. But if I was a pit man, I would put my money on Izzy just because he has a lot. The margin of error is a lot bigger for him. He doesn't have to really go outside of who he is. Cannonier's gonna have to. He's gonna have to find the knockout early. The longer the fight goes, the more Izzy's able to read him and potentially put him away.
Absolutely. I know we got about 3 minutes left. Wanted to ask you an interesting question. I was actually thinking about when I was laying in bed last night. I thought to myself, man, if I was a UFC fighter with a fight coming up, now that they have all kinds of betting odds, you could bet on the fact that you're going to win a decision. You could bet on a fact that you're going to win by submission or by knockout, and sometimes you can get some really good odds. I think to myself, are fighters sometimes saying to themselves, man, I'm going to pick up, let's say, 100 grand for this fight. Maybe I'm going to put 10 grand on me winning by submission, and then I'm going to work as hard as I can to get that submission. I'm not asking what you personally have ever done, but is that something that you think some fighters will do? There's nothing wrong with it as long as you're not betting against yourself. But is it possible that you think there may be a group of fighters that are sometimes adding to their paycheck by making some bets on themselves to win?
Yeah, I think that's highly possible. I wouldn't do it just because I'm very superstitious, and I just think that's bad luck. So I wouldn't, but I wouldn't be surprised if that was already a thing. And I make enough, so I don't feel the need to risk the extra money.
That makes sense. I would agree. Last question. You've had fights against various different levels of fighter coming up. Some fighters you came in against, you probably had a lot of confidence that you could be at your worst and beat this guy. Other fighters, you have tough, and not that you ever disrespect a fighter, but in all honesty, there's levels to this game. And do you enjoy facing the better fighters more? Because I would imagine if you're facing a fighter that doesn't have much for you, it's not going to be a hard day in the office. You're not going to get cut up. You're not going to pull a hamstring or twist your ankle or throw your shoulder, your back, your neck out by these crazy scrambles. And that's more fun, not to hurt yourself. But then on the flip side of it, is there some fun, and would you rather be going up against a guy who's really tough and dangerous, and that you're going to have to be in some serious conflict with?
I prefer high level guys just because maybe it's the wrestler in me, but I don't enjoy eating up on bums, as I can't really. It doesn't get me like excited. I mean, I like the money. It is easier money, but I like to be able to brag about guys I beat.
Makes sense. Cool. Well, I really appreciate it, Curtis. In the last minute we have you, how can people support you on social media? Let me know if there's any projects you're involved with that you want that people could support.
You can find me on Instagram and on Twitter at razorblades265. And I recently went to a fundraising event for an organization called Say, S-A-Y. It's for speech impediments for the youth. It's an organization for other people, predominantly teenagers and like youth that have speech impediments. And it's just like a program that they can enter that just helps build their confidence and teach them that there isn't anything wrong with them, and they can have a normal everyday life also.
That's awesome. And that project is called SAY. Is there a website for that, or a full name?
I think that's the name of the website, SAY. I think they have an Instagram. It's also SAY. Like I said, I just recently went to the fundraiser about a week ago out in New York. I just heard about them, although I've had a speech impediment my whole life. I recently just heard about them, so I would be surprised if the majority of the world hasn't heard of them.
Okay, we'll definitely check that out, and I think that's an admirable thing that you're doing. My brother had a speech impediment for several years early on in his life, and it's definitely tough on you, man, and so it's a good cause to support because, like you said, there's nothing wrong with them. We all have different flaws at birth that we have to deal with, but that's a great cause, man, and that's awesome that you went out there and supported, man, and that shows that you have that love in your heart and compassion for people, and that's huge. A lot of people don't know a lot of fighters do have that love and compassion, man, so really give you respect on that. Curtis Blades, I want to thank you so much for jumping back here on the MMA Power Hour, man. It's always a pleasure to chat with you. Can't wait to see you do your thing and get the W in England July 23rd over Tom Aspinall.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Happy to be on the show.
Thanks. You're very welcome. Have a great night, my friend. Take care.
You too, sir. Have a good night.
I will. Thanks. And that was Curtis Razor Blades. And I think when he said Razor Blades 265, Blades, his last name is not just B-L-A-D-E, B-L-A-Y-D-E-S. So if that's Razor Blades 265, spell Blades B-L-A-Y-D-E-S. Dr. Adam Roorda, good show.
Yeah, great show. And Curtis, you doing that actually telling me about it gave me chills. And
that was wonderful to hear.
Man. And I have to say this too. I can tell. You saw me stand up. Did you see that wow on my face early on in the interview?
I think. Yep.
He's much more confident. You can tell. We did one of his earlier interviews
about 4 years ago.
Yeah, about 4 years ago. Not necessarily early on in his career, but early enough as far as interviews. He'd only done a few. So, seeing him now and hearing him now,
much improved.
His I'm not sure if it's confidence level or if he's really been focusing on it, but it's a noticeable difference, and I'm actually really impressed.
Absolutely.
I actually had to overcome something when I was younger as well, and it's not an easy task.
Not at all. Not at all. No, and it's great to see him being able to communicate and have the confidence and do interviews. And he's a really good guy. He's a really good guy and a really good fighter. And this is a really big fight. Kudos to him and credit to him for agreeing to fight over in England. I would not be surprised if other high-ranking contenders might have turned down that location, saying, why am I going to fight in this guy's backyard when I'm ranked number 3 and he's ranked number 5 or 6 or 7? But Curtis is a guy that doesn't worry about that. He wants to fight, and he's ready, and that's going to be a really, really good fight. And like he said, I think you got Tai Tuivasa and Cyril Gane, and the winner of his fight and that fight probably will be meeting for either an interim or a heavyweight championship that may or may not be stripped from Francis Ngannou. It was interesting getting his thoughts too about where he thinks Ngannou goes from here and what he should do, and his chances against Tyson Fury if that fight is materialized.
Right.
Does materialize, rather. Anyway, I know we're butt up against right at,
We're right at.
Yeah.
Well, you know what, everybody? Thank you so much for staying in here with us, hanging in. Amazing interviews every week, Tuesday. Actually, Colin, let's do what we've been doing for a while. Next week, let's take a break because it is to go into the next season. We're going to try to bring you guys some surprises, and I need to wrap my head around what surprise that will be.
Nice.
So in 2 weeks, we'll be back here on the Hannibal TV and our own social media. Go to vice versa a spot. If you are on one, go to the other. And Colin, thank you so much. Great interviews as always. And one real quick shout out, everybody. You guys are the best as well. And head on over to lifttoken.io. Check out the cryptocurrency, and it's all about sustainability and ethics, and then also physical NFTs. Brand new thing.
Absolutely. And it's a great project, and I know I say funny stuff after Adam talks, but all respect to his projects. They're really good, Lift Token and the stuff that they're putting into it to make it a great project, So an MMA Power Hour sustaining 10 full seasons coming up to the 11th, not next week, but 2 weeks from today. And I look forward to that. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys so much. In order, our guests of appearance, thank you so much, Mr. Jacob Stitch Duran. Really appreciate you, brother. Always great talking with you, and an honor. And for our second guest, Mr. Curtis Razor Blades, thank you so much, brother. Great talking to you for only the second time. Can't wait to see that fight over in England, where you skin the lion in his own den. That's about it. Spread the love in a positive way. Be that guy, be that girl. It'll come back to you a million times. Take good care of your pets, cats and dogs. They give you unconditional love, and they deserve the same. And I appreciate you, respect you, love you, and thank you so much for tonight. This is Colin Crandall, and I'm tapping out.